How is a Christian young person to respond, to endure, to make their way through college without their worldview getting completely hammered, abused, and mocked, and while getting a decent grade?
How to survive secular college.
One of the questions I get asked is, how do I, as a biblical creationist, survive secular college? And that's a very legitimate question. It often comes from parents who are about to send their son or daughter off to college for the first time, and they're worried that their student is going to walk away from the church. I think that's a legitimate concern. After all, they're getting a lot of information at college, and some of that information is not really true. Some of it is along the lines of pushing toward an evolutionary worldview rather than just being objectively, factually true. Well, how then do we deal with this? Well, I think first of all, we need to stay solid in the Word of God. Make sure that the student is in the Word of God. Daily would be best. And I realize it's tough to do that when you're a college student and you have all these other things going on. But it's very important that we allow God to speak to us, and He speaks to us through the Scriptures. Make sure that you're speaking to God through your prayer life. So that's step number 2. And then third, make sure that you're in a good Bible teaching church. And there are lots of compromised churches out there, but there are still, in this world, a number of good Bible-teaching churches. And that's very important that you're there every Sunday. And I know that churches offer a lot of extra programs. You're not going to have time, probably, for a lot of those. But don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Make sure that you get together with other Christians. And also, Sunday church service will remind you if you've gotten a little bit off in terms of Bible study or prayer. That'll help get you back on track. Fourth, try to find some other students who are like-minded, who believe the Bible and are biblically solid, biblical creationists, and that's going to encourage you emotionally, spiritually, and rationally, too. It's going to give you iron sharpening iron type skills where you can talk about these sorts of issues. Also, make sure you get Answers in Genesis resources. That's going to keep you up to date on the latest issues regarding creation versus evolution and what you're being taught in class. Learn how to think. You can't memorize all the scientific data, but you can learn how to think and how to process it accurately. And finally, I'd like to offer one more point that I know will sound a little bit controversial, but I think it's true. And that is for students who are going into a hard science that deals with origins like biology or astronomy or geology, and not so much other sciences. But if you're going into one of those three, I think you need to be very careful about who you tell that you're a creationist. In fact, I think for your professors, you should not let on that you're a creationist. Now, don't lie, but don't volunteer the information. And I hate to say that because we'd like to witness to everyone. But it turns out that there are some people out there that just have an axe to grind against creationists. We've known of many cases where students have been stopped from getting their degree if their professor found out that they were a creationist. So I think it would be best to work with the system. And there are honest ways you can do that. When you're answering a test, give back the answer the professor wants. You're being tested on what you were taught, not on what you believe. And likewise, when you're writing a paper, you can do it in honest ways. You can say it is generally believed that the world is 4.5 billion years old. Now, you haven't been dishonest there. That's a true statement, and it doesn't reveal what you believe. So just think through how you would answer some things. And then when you get your degree, then you can stand up and say, well, I'm a creationist, and you can use that degree for the glory of God.
That is great advice. That's also a bit of a bummer, isn't it? Perhaps you're taking the test and you have to spew out the nonsense that they have concocted for you to believe that God doesn't exist, because that's really what's going on here. You can answer things like, well, you taught that, the textbook says that, or the doctor of whatever says this. That way you are just regurgitating what you are being tested on.